everyone, welcome back. I'm the City Witch. Today's video I'm going to be talking to you about the many different types of witchy paths that you can consider taking, and of course then beginning to label yourself as a certain type of witch. Now, there are a few things I want to say before I jump too much into this video, and the first thing is that for those of you out there that are brand new to the craft or you've just joined, welcome. Don't feel like you need to label yourself straight away, and I wish somebody had told me that when I first started, because I tended to associate myself with whatever I was doing at the time or whatever group I was with at the time as well. So when I was solitary, I went through a number of different magical paths, and then when I became part of a coven, I associated with what they were, which at the time was pagan. And I spent a number of years being what other people kind of influenced me to be instead of what I wanted to be. So the advice I want to give you guys is you don't have to label yourself straight away, and I would actually advise you not to do that. I would advise you to take time to discover what you like about the craft and be drawn to whatever resonates with you in the craft, and to study. Learn as much as you possibly can, and then when you start to feel like you're drawn to a certain path, or that you're recognising that a lot of things that you enjoy resonate with a certain craft, then that probably is the magical practitioner you're going to become down the line. But the other thing I want to say as well is that witchcraft is always evolving, so it stands to reason that you're going to evolve along with your craft. One of my favourite sayings is that you're always going to be a student of the craft, a student of nature and the world around you. You're never going to be a master at anything. So therefore, as you're a student, you're going to learn lots of fantastic magical things throughout your path, and they are going to influence your craft and make your particular craft very unique to you. I don't think any two witches in any one field practice exactly the same way. If you put 10 green witches in a room together and ask them to do the same spell, you'd probably have 10 completely different results. And the reason for that is because they're all influenced by their own magical training, their own knowledge, and whatever crafts and practices that they've particularly come into contact with that's helped influence them or that's resonated with them. So they're all different, and some of them might be hereditary witches as well, where they've been taught things from their own lineage that no one else is possibly going to know. So the point I'm trying to make, guys, is that the craft is very versatile and we're very accepting, and there's a lot of different things that we accept that a lot of, I suppose, other paths and traditions and faiths don't. So whatever you feel is right for you and your path is what I think you should be doing. And so long as you're not generally going out of your way to massively harm others, by harm I mean, physically do something you shouldn't, then I would say there's no reason why you can't practice in that way that you want to practice. So feel free to evolve your craft, learn from as many practitioners as you can, try lots of different paths as you can, walk as many roads as you can before labelling yourself. And then the other thing I want to say, guys, is when you finally do come to a point of labelling yourself, that you settle on a certain type of a witch that you want to associate with being, don't feel like you have to be that forever. I myself has gone through many different types of paths over the years that have resonated deeply with me, and I think I've changed paths a good 10 times in my life before I ended up settling on being an eclectic practitioner. Now, I've been practicing for 28 years, so I've had a lot of time to jump paths and change, but the reason I changed paths was because new things started to come to light and new things resonated with me. So as I say, as your craft evolves, so will you. So don't feel like when if you choose to be pagan one day, don't feel like in 10 years time you still have to be pagan if you're really not happy with being pagan anymore. You can choose to swap and go into Wicca, you can choose to become a green witch, eclectic, whatever you want to be is fine. I don't personally think that you have to stay something for the rest of your life. You can swap paths as and when you need to. It's all about you and your practice. The other thing I'd like to say, guys, as well, is that a lot of people mix Wicca and witchcraft, and I see this a lot on different videos online as well, and through many books as well, that we're having to explain the difference between Wicca and witchcraft. And I'm not going to dwell on this too much, because I think there's a lot of videos out there which are explaining this very well, probably better than I can. But all I will say is not every witch is Wiccan, and not every Wiccan is a witch. And I don't think that you have to choose to be one or the other. Wicca is a religious practice under the umbrella of witchcraft. You don't have to be Wiccan to be a witch, and vice versa. They're kind of interchangeable a little bit, and actually many Wiccans don't associate with being a witch at all, and many witches can choose to be Wiccan as well as a witch. So there's multiple different ways to perceive how to be Wiccan and to practice witchcraft. So what I would say to you guys is, one of the things that I find a little bit infuriating personally is when people are asking me my faith or what I believe in, and I say straight away, oh, I practice witchcraft. The first thing people tend to say to me is, oh, so you're Wiccan. I don't like that personally. I don't like people assuming that I'm something, because I'm not. I'm not Wiccan. I'm Eclectic witch. So the better question that I'd like people to start considering asking instead is, oh, what path do you associate with, or what type of witchcraft do you practice then? That should be the question, not an assumption that because you're saying you're a witch that therefore you're Wiccan. I think that's very wrong, and a lot of that we have to blame for media, to be honest. So that's the one thing I just want to say to you guys, and say I'm not going to jump too much into all of that, because I could be here forever talking about it, and I don't want to do that. The video is about the different types of witches out there, and I'm going to jump into it right now. Kitchen witch. The kitchen witch is a magical practitioner that bases all of their magical practice primarily in the home and the hearth, and often, you guessed it, located in the kitchen. They can often be found making some concoction or potion, leaning over some cauldron, or these days the modern version of a cauldron, the hob. They often make potions, concoctions, working with herbal remedies, tinctures, and they are often renowned healers. They put all of their intentions and magical energy into each and every meal that they make, and they often choose ingredients based on their correspondences and magical influences. The magical tools often are associated with the kitchen. So instead of a regular atham, you might find a kitchen witch has a butcher's knife as their atham. Or instead of a wand, they might have the wooden spoon. All of their magic tends to be associated with the kitchen, so you'll often find them, as I say, over some cauldron or some pot on the hob, and they might be chanting. I've known some of them to even sing, and many of them will incorporate sigils or magical symbols into their craft and their potions and their cooking as they're stirring the pots, because they can stir that into it. The Hedge witch. The Hedge witch is a type of magical practitioner that bridges the gap between nature, people, and spirits. They have abilities that allow them to work on alternate planes of existence, combining the physical with the metaphysical. They work with spirits, divination, and astral travel. The term hedge witch is used to represent their ability to travel over the hedge from one world into another. So working with spirits and other beings from other realms is one of their primary functions. The Cosmic Witch. Cosmic Witch is a type of magical practitioner that utilises all the various different types of astrology, astronomy, constellations, planet work, and celestial magic. Their divination and magical practices often align with the moon phases, the planets aligning, the sun, and the stars. Some even incorporate comets, meteorites, and shooting stars into their practices, often planning rituals and spell work around those special sacred events. Some even work with UFOs and extraterrestrial beings. If you're interested in working some cosmic witchery or learning a bit more about it, I recommend watching YouTube videos by Stargirl the Practical Witch. She talks a lot in her videos about extraterrestrial beings, about UFOs, and about starseeds. So I definitely give her a watch if you're interested. Cosmic witches work a lot with numerology, angels, and celestial symbolism. So all of their kind of witchery is about the planets, the cosmos, and the universe around us. So rather than work with nature and anything down on earth, they're working with the heavens. The Green Witch. The Green Witch is a craft that focuses on nature, the earth, and the elements, working with magic from ancient cultures, utilising folklore and mythology and all of nature in their craft. They work with any kind of green witchery, from trees, plants, herbs, flowers, roots, even some bones and fungi. and they utilise all of this in their magical practice. They're extremely in tune with nature, often following the natural cycles of the season and the weather. Green witches are also known to be garden witches, often cultivating and growing all of their own herbs and creating all of their own magical tools. I know I myself, when I followed this path, made my own broom at one point and many of my wands as well. They tend to be skilled herbalists and they tend to be excellent healers, and they tend to understand both the magical and medicinal properties of all of their herbs. Green witches will make all of their own herbal concoctions and magical blends, often making their own floor washes and making their own candles. They are very creative individuals and they tend to resonate strongly with nature and all the spirits of nature, and tend to have many of their altars in magical places outside in their garden amongst nature. The Sea Witch. The Sea Witch is a magical type of practitioner that associates all of their magic around the large body of water known as the ocean. Some of them, however, do choose to be referred to as water witches, river witches, or waterfall witches, or even lake witches. So it's often best to find out which type of magical practitioner you're referring to. But for the sake of this video, we're going to talk about the Sea Witch. Sea witches often tend to work closely with the ocean, so they prefer to practice their magical practices and rituals on the beach itself as close to the ocean as they possibly can. Many of their tools are made from items that they find lying on the beach, such as driftwood, shells, pebbles, even bones from some of the creatures that live in the ocean. Some of them prefer to work with magical creatures from the ocean as well, such as the mermaids, the undines, the nymphs, and the silkies. Some of them choose instead to work with deities, or alongside their spirits they work with deities, such as Poseidon, ones that honour and reflect the qualities of the ocean. All of their magical practices tend to be practiced, as I said, as close as they possibly can to the beach, but if they can't get close to the beach, many of them will make altars and shrines with items that they pick up from beaches all around the world, and their altars tend to be decorated to look or reflect an ocean. Sea witches tend to be really closely associated with the ocean, so therefore they often like to have careers that are close to the ocean, such as marine biology. They tend to use a lot of different water skill divination techniques, and they tend to do a lot of water scrying as well. I know specific witches out there that are sea witches that have their own set of magical runes, so they don't work with regular runes like the rest of us, they have a set of sea runes. If anyone's interested in those, I have a copy of those and I can link that below should you be interested. All of their witchery is wonderful and it's practice that's actually quite close to my heart. I do enjoy sea witchery, although I don't get to do it very often because it's not close to where I live locally. So if you are connected to the ocean, it is a fascinating magical practice and I do recommend giving it a go. The Elemental Witch. The Elemental Witch is a type of magical practitioner that tends to work with just the main elements of earth, air, fire and water. Some of them do incorporate the fifth element of spirit, recognising it as a universal force around them, but many of them choose to ignore the fifth element and only work with the four main elements. The Elemental Witch believe in recognising these as the main bodies of the earth because they're recognised and proven by science. These types of witches often have multiple altars located all over their homes dedicated specifically to one particular element. So as an example of this, I know one particular elemental witch that I personally know has the altar for air in her library where all the knowledge in her home is contained. I know that she has her altar for fire as her fireplace in the home, which is located in her living room. I know her water altar is in the bathroom where she bathes and conducts blessings and cleansings. And I know her earth altar is located out in her garden where she can be amongst nature. Elemental practitioners tend to be very solitary. Their practice tends to be extremely unique and often their altars can be coated in some really unusual things, so anything they feel is associated or symbolic of that element they're working with could be on their altar. Some of them choose to work with deities and some of them choose not to. So it is a very individual, very unique practice of the craft. To some degree, I think elemental magic is involved in all areas of the craft and therefore we are all elemental witches, but elemental witches are very specific to just honouring the four elements and not really much else beyond that. solitary witch. The solitary witch is a magical practitioner that chooses to practice their craft in complete solitude. So rather than choose to join a group, they would choose to just practice on their own, where their craft can be nurtured by themselves and not influenced by outside forces. Often these magical practitioners, sometimes years down the line, do choose to join a group or become associated with a group and then choose to have their own magical practice separate. Now, I would like to say here as well, with being a solitary witch, I'm a little bit both. I'm a solitary, but I'm also a group witch as well. So I used to actually run covens as a high priestess, so I did associate with being in a coven, but I also have my own solitary practice. So you can still be part of a group, but also be solitary at the same time and have your own magical practice, be unique to you and a bit more private. So they can be interchangeable, to be honest, guys. Many of the different magical practices that I've already listed and the ones beyond this point, any solitary practitioner can incorporate those into their craft, and their craft is extremely unique to them and often very, very private. So a solitary practitioner would probably not tell you all the ins and outs of their practice. They would probably keep it very, very basic and maybe even not tell you at all, to be honest. So a solitary practitioner is the kind of path that you would choose if you want your practice to be completely private, not influenced by outsiders and not really overseen by anybody either. The religious witch. Some witches choose to incorporate more religious beliefs into their practices. One such path for this is Wicca. Wicca is an earth-based religious path that falls under the umbrella of witchcraft. It's important to note that not all Wiccans are witches and not all witches are Wiccan. I know I've said that before, but I feel like it's important to say that right now. Religious paths in witchcraft offer structure, providing magical times to do things, aka the witch's calendar. They allow you to grow and learn in the craft in a safe environment, providing guidelines such as the Wiccan Read for rituals, holidays and celebrations, and they often incorporate these into their everyday life, offering structured ways to be able to do that. Excellent for the busy type of witch. They incorporate and pass down many traditions over the years, and many of these religious paths are very popular, such as Gardanian, Alexandrian and dynamic witchcraft. There are many other paths, but those are kind of the main ones that people focus on. These come in many forms of training, and often training is a form of dedication and shows that you are disciplined enough to follow the path of a religious witch. These kinds of dedications often include something known as the Year of the Day. The Year in a Day is a tradition where you prove for a year and a day that you are able to follow all the magical practices that they set before you and all the magical challenges, and then once those have been met, you would then be initiated into that particular magical path, and often then would join a set group or a coven in the process. If you're interested in practicing some kind of faith or religion as part of your craft, religious paths are a way to do that under the umbrella of witchcraft. So as I say, Wicca, dynamic witchcraft, Gardanian, Alexandrian will all offer those kinds of structured techniques to you. To a smaller degree, paganism will also do that as well, but for the most part, Wiccan is the most popular out of all those paths, offering many books and many information on that particular subject. The Eclectic Witch. The Eclectic Witch is my chosen path, so I am an eclectic practitioner. The reason I chose to be an eclectic witch is as follows. Eclectic witch is somebody that kind of is a bit picky and can't actually choose one set path. They kind of want to do it all. So by choosing to be eclectic, they pick and choose all the various different things that they like, that resonate with them from many different types of paths, and not just witchcraft or even just earth-based paths. It can be many, many different types of religious or practices within the world, and they incorporate it into their own unique path. For this reason, all eclectic practitioners practice completely differently, and their craft is completely unique to them. So if you put 10 of us in a room, we will all practice completely differently, all tell you completely different information, and all of our information and our skills is based on what resonated with us, what we've learned, what we've studied, and what we've incorporated into our craft over the many years that we have practiced. Should you ever feel restricted in witchcraft, choosing to be an eclectic practitioner is probably a really good choice. It means you don't have to choose any one particular path, it means you don't have to associate with being any one particular thing, and it also means that your type of witchcraft is very versatile to any other type of witchcraft, meaning that if you decided to join a group that's primarily Wiccan, it doesn't matter, because if you studied Wicca as an eclectic witch, you are able to practice all of the rituals and ceremonies that they do without problem. But then in the same boat, you could also go and join a pagan group and be able to do the same thing if paganism was one of the particular paths that resonated with you and you have the knowledge upon that as well. So we are very unique, very versatile, and very greedy. We like all knowledge, and we like to study as much as we possibly can, and we like to learn from as many different sources as we possibly can as well. So if that's something that interests you, perhaps you're an eclectic witch. The Draconic Witch. A Draconic Witch is a magical practitioner that chooses to work with dragons and practice dragon magic. They often have many dragon familiars and spend a lot of time working in the dragon realm. They don't particularly believe in any one set of deities, because in dragon magic and dragon lore, they don't believe in gods and goddesses. Working with dragons means you work with only dragons, and you incorporate lots of different types and varieties of dragons into your craft. Often their altars and their rituals surrounded by the elements of fire primarily, and their altars tend to be covered in figurines or effigies of dragons. The Chaos Witch. The Chaos Witch is a type of practitioner that often get lumps in with practicing a more darker path than the average witch. And the reason I wanted to talk about chaos witchcraft is because it deserves a mention, because it's quite an interesting form of magic. Chaos witches actually believe in the means justify the ends, so they utilise any and all magical energies in their environment and the universe around us to get a result, even if those energies are slightly darker. So they work a lot with more negative energies, the energies of the universe, kind of dark matter, and they work a lot with chaotic energies that we wouldn't normally work with if you're more associated with path like being a green witch, for example. So they don't use so much of nature, but they might use anger, they might use hatred, they might use all of those energies that we usually neglect or push out as a regular practitioner, and they actually utilise that as an energy and source it in their craft in order to make magical things happen. The Sex Witch. A sex witch is a type of magical practitioner that uses the art of tantric methods to build up power during a sex ritual. The belief is that the orgasm is the release of the spell and the energy of that spell. This takes great time, focus and discipline to accomplish, and only should be performed with a consenting partner. There are many amazing books on sex magic out there that you can look at if you're interested, and many of them touch upon some really interesting practices. Some of these sex witches are not in a partnership and not part of a group, they are solitary, so therefore the type of sex magic they practice would be through masturbation and astral sex partners. There is a belief in the sex witch community that you can choose an astral partner, and an astral partner is another solitary practitioner from somewhere else in the world that astral travels to you to have sex on the astral plane. That energy is then put in and fueled into a spell, so focused and harnessed and spelled to do something, and then released during the act of orgasm. Sexual fluids from the sexual witch are often used in all of their spells, and they often incorporate blood magic as well. The Vampiric Witch. The Vampiric Witch is another type of practitioner that can be associated with the darker paths of the craft that you can choose from. The Vampiric Witch is a type of magical practitioner that is able to siphon off magical energies from other beings around them. This act is known as the feeding. They often are interchangeable with the name psychic vampire as well, and they don't just feed off of energy, they can feed off of your emotions, your hopes and your dreams, and often they can invade your dreams as well. This is why a lot of other magical practitioners actually have protections up around their home and their minds, and they work with their own inner sanctorum to keep out such people. A way to recognise a vampiric witch or a psychic vampire is when you spend time with somebody and you instantly feel drained after they leave. That's because they've leached all of your energy away during the feeding, and they have taken all of your positivity for themselves. So they often feel buzzed and happy and vibrant, and will say phrases like, "Oh, you're such a good listener, you're so amazing, thank you, I always feel amazing when I come to you." And that's because they've drained you of all of your energy. Now, psychic vampires don't often know that they're doing it. Some of them are untrained and just do it naturally by accident, but a vampiric witch is actually somebody that actively harnesses that ability, knows how to use it, and deliberately uses it in order to gain energy from other people. So rather than use their own energy for spells and rituals, they will actually siphon off energy from things around them, sucking that life out of them, and then put that into spells and rituals instead. The demonic witch. So there's a clue in the title, guys. The demonic witch is the kind of magical practitioner that utilises demons and summonings for their spell work. So they will actually go out of their way to learn demonology, practice demonic forms of magic, and work and form contracts with demons. Now, just like the average practitioner might work with fairies, dragons, or angels, this practitioner will choose to work with slightly darker forces because they get different results. Now, again, this doesn't necessarily make them evil or bad. It's just one different type of path that you can consider following. Again, no judgment here, it's whatever path you choose to walk. I myself have studied demonology, and I do have lots of books on how to practice demonic forms of witchcraft, and demonology is a very interesting subject, but also can be very dangerous, so please be careful. And if you do choose to go down that path, guys, just make sure you know what you're doing, and if you are going to summon anything, make sure you're able to also send it back. And remember, you are the power, so all of the power and skill to summon something means you can also send it away. So good. The Shadow Witch. The Shadow Witch is a type of magical practitioner that delves deeper than any of the other witches. Shadow magic is a type of magic practiced by witches who want to work on the more darker aspects of their own personalities, and maybe recognise where they're not so perfect, because we're not perfect, and maybe eradicate or at least work on those darker aspects. Whereas a shadow witch is actually a practitioner that embraces those darker qualities of their personality and utilises darker energies of the universe and the world around them in order to practice. Now, they aren't very solitary practitioners, so there's very little known about them. There are some really good, interesting books out there. I know one of them was written by a guy called Digitalis, Raven Digitalis his name is, and he writes a fantastic book on shadow magic. So if you're interested in learning shadow magic and working with the darker aspect of yourself, I recommend looking him up. And that's most of the magical practices I have for you today, guys. As I say, there are quite literally hundreds of magical practices out there. I should know, I have counted. I think I got to like 138 before I stopped. So that's a lot of magical practices. I'm going to give some honourable mentions to some of the practices out there which I think deserve a little bit of a mention, and also it might give you the name so you can go out and research those types of practices for yourselves, especially if the name sparks a little bit of interest. So honourable mentions are going to be tech witches, cultural witches, blood witches, blade witches, wishing witches, warrior witches, transformational witches, hereditary witches, energy witches, the weather witch, bog or swamp witch, astral witch, lunar witches, fairy witches, sigil witches, angelic witches, ceremonial witches, solar witches, crystal witches, necromantic witches, and nocturnal witches. And actually that last one, nocturnal witches, I actually practiced nocturnal witchcraft for quite a while, especially when I worked in bars and clubs for a while. It meant that when I was coming home at night, I was coming home early hours in the morning, so perfect for working nocturnal magic. So I would definitely give a look into some of those, guys. Many of those different ones I mentioned there as an honourable mention are ones that I've tried myself, which is why I've given them to you today. There are many videos online that are talking to you about the different types of magical practices out there, and all of them might mention something I haven't here, something that resonates with you. So the idea behind this video, guys, was just to give you an idea of all the different practices out there, all the paths that you can possibly choose from. And again, there's no judgment. I don't feel like you have to choose something that's particularly a light path. If you're drawn more to the darker aspects of the craft, that is completely fine. Just make sure you do all your research and look into both aspects of light and dark practices in order to choose what resonates with you. And as I say, if you can't pick one, then just choose to be eclectic like me. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. As always, give me that thumbs up and click the bell. Let me know that you liked the video. And if you do have any questions or inquiries or anything that you want to discuss that I've mentioned in the video, just drop me a message below and I'll be happy to answer as quickly as I can. And for those of you out there who'd like to support my channel further, I'm on many forms of social media and all of that information is in the description. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and of course I'm on Patreon as well. And for those of you out there who choose to support me on Patreon, thank you very much. I appreciate every single one of you. So as always, guys, be good to each other and I'll see you very soon. Blessed be.